Kabata, the Rector of Consolata Institute of Philosophy, Convention Franciscan. We began our topic last week on thoughts and emotions, and today we are continuing. I'm happy for those who chatted with me on YouTube and on Twitter and even some on Facebook. And I think I've answered one or two questions on in those forums. So at the moment, as we continue checking the relationship between our thoughts and our emotions, we shall have some practical examples today and see that it's not a topic that is just new. It is a topic that began long time ago. Today, I begin by introducing one of the greatest monks in the Catholic Church, called Evangelius of Pontus. This was a monk of the 4th century, and he wrote a great work called Practical Treatise, where he said, by mastering your thoughts, you can master your feelings. This was 4th century. So, where Evangelius grew, he decided together with some young men to run into the desert and become monks there. Each was staying alone. And therefore, he was a Christian monk. And we call them ascetic monks or desert fathers. He ended up being one of the most influential theologians in the 4th century. And he was well known as a great thinker, as a polished speaker, and a gifted writer. Now, Pontus, or Evangelius, according to him, he came up with an important fact, which underlined that the emotions that we have are the products of our thoughts. So, he was, for example, he began by realizing that there are two types of people. He said the people who live in the world, those who are not monks, those who are living, doing business and doing a lot of things in town, in life, they are never attacked through the thoughts usually. But most of their temptations come through the things. For example, there is alcohol, a lot of beer around you, or maybe money. But he said that the monks are those people who have chosen to live their lives in the desert or in isolation, being able to stay. Actually, the maxim for monastery life is ora et labora, in Latin, prayer and work. So they don't have a lot of business like the parish priest would have in town. And Evangelius of Pontus said, for those that live alone, they have fled and they have started living their life for Christ. The devil does not tempt them using the things usually, but the devil tempts them through their thoughts. And it is true for you. Sometimes you can be peaceful. Sometimes you are thinking of something so important, and all of a sudden a thought comes. Aristotle himself said, it is the mark of an educated person to be able to entertain thoughts without accepting them. Can this be true? That you have some thoughts of some kind within you, but you don't accept them, or they don't influence how you live? This means that to be able to combat the emotions, whether they are good or bad, we need actually to modify the way we think. So, this is what Evangelius said. Against those who are in the world, the demons fight them mainly by making use of objects, as I've explained. But for the monks, the demons fight usually by means of thoughts. And he continued explaining that because of their loneliness, because they are not in the world, they are not finding so many people to talk with, they are easily combated by the thoughts. From our last discussion last week on Monday, we realized that one of the most important reasons is that our thoughts can also create our feelings. Today we are going a little bit into the depth of this statement. How can your thoughts affect or create emotions and feelings in you? You know very well, if you focus on the bright side of your life, things and opportunities that come to your way, sometimes what you think is what happens to you. Sometimes what you think help you to improve the way you also feel. For example, if you wake up in the morning and you have this feeling that it will be a total messy day, that you are going to fail, that influences from the very word go, even the way you treat the people you meet at your own doorstep. I remember this time, one time I was in the lift at Times Tower, and a certain beautiful lady entered, and I said in Swahili, "Habari yako?" And the lady told me, "Utaziweza." I was devastated. But I just knew that this one had a bad day from the word go, and is probably going to live the whole day like that. And I wasn't soft again after that, because this person had already created abundantly. When somebody tells you good morning, the person is opening up for a discussion or something that is usually important. And this means that by mastering your thoughts, you can also master your feelings. If you don't know how to master your thoughts, then you'll not be able to master your feelings. For example, events happen. When these events happen, you interpret and make meaning of these events. This creates your mood. An event happens, you interpret the event, and this interpretation creates your mood. And therefore, there is a relationship between the world, your thoughts, and also your moods. You remember the famous example I gave last week of two people in the traffic jam. One gets so much annoyed, is insulting everybody, it's shouting at everyone, raising hands and fingers, but the other one is praying the rosary. Same event happening in the world, but people have interpreted these two events differently. And therefore, if you see, what is the world? The world is a series of positive but neutral and negative events. They can be positive. For example, in the world, maybe people are fighting. There can be neutral events. Maybe two teams are playing and you are not a fan of any of the teams. Or they can also be negative. They can also be positive, whereby there is a wedding of your friend or your sister or your brother. These events are in the world. They are neutral to you. I know there are people when Arsenal and Manchester United is playing, they always call me in order to create negative feelings in me. I don't feel it, but I know sometimes when Manchester United have a very bad game, it affects me a little bit, just a little bit. Thoughts. So we have the world. The world can be positive events, neutral events, or negative or positive. Then you have the thoughts. What are the thoughts? You interpret those events with a series of thoughts that continually flow in you through your mind. And this is what we call internal dialogue. What is an internal dialogue? An internal dialogue is that dialogue within you, that something which has happened in the world has made you recall something in the past. For example, there are people who fight for justice, especially people who have really been affected even by parents. You have seen your parents who are beating you all the time, and you see another mother beating the child. These people interpret immediately this is injustice, and they start fighting for it. Now, from the world, which is neutral, positive, or negative, you have your thoughts, you use your thoughts and your past experiences to interpret the world. And what happened? The mood changes. So your feelings are created by your thoughts and not the actual events. All experiences must be processed through our brains and given conscious meaning before we experience that emotional response. We'll come after break and see this wound that is neutral, positive, or negative, interpreted in my mind using the thoughts. How does it create emotions or feelings of anger, of joy, or happiness? Maybe we can have a short break now, and then when we come back, we shall be able to look at these three events and interpret them together. Thank you very much.
Liturujia Katoliki, sakramenti, kuungama, ekaristi, sala, nyimbo, neno la Mungu, ibada takatifu. Jiunge nasi kila siku ya Jumapili saa 1:30 usiku na Jumatatu saa 4 asubuhi kwa liturujia Katoliki na Padre Boniface Mukwe.
Our masses will start from 6 o'clock in the evening, East African time.
Capuchin TV, a Catholic Broadcasting Ministry. Tunafuraha kukujulisha kwamba misa takatifu ya kila siku ni kama ifuatavyo: saa 1 kamili asubuhi, saa 7:30 mchana, saa 12 jioni na saa 2:30 usiku.
Go forth, the mass is ended.
Thanks be to God.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, tunakuenzi na kukudhamini.
Endelea kutazama Capuchin TV.
Kitubio au upatanisho. Sakramenti ya kitubio ndiyo sakramenti ya kuondolea watu dhambi walizotenda baada ya ubatizo. Sakramenti ya kitubio pia huitwa sakramenti ya upatanisho, ipo katika fungu la sakramenti za uponyaji. Kuna sakramenti mbili za uponyaji, kitubio na mpako mtakatifu wa wagonjwa. Dhumuni haswa la sakramenti ya uponyaji ni kuzirejeshea uhai roho zetu pale zinapougua kwa kutenda dhambi. Yesu ndiye tabibu mkuu wa roho zetu, naye yu tayari kututibu kila tunapougua.
Kupata kitubio kama skiza tuni yako, tuma neno skiza likifuatwa na nambari 738100273 kwa 811.
So thank you very much and welcome back. After that short break, we were analyzing Evangelius of Pontus, the monks who said that it is not our thoughts, it is not the events in life that create the emotions that we have, but the events are genuinely there and the emotions are there. It is the interpretation that we give to those events that actually creates our feelings. And that is why our topic is important, the relationship between thoughts and emotions. There was another philosopher called Epictetus. Last time I talked of the Stoic philosophers and Epicureans, where I told you the Stoic philosophers are those who enjoy pain gladly. They can create pain for themselves. And the Epicureans are the joy makers, the lives of the party, people of nyama choma from morning to evening. For them, every day can be an event, you know. They can create a party from nowhere. Like some people say the Kenyans can create a party for no party and then a planning party for another party. And they continue partying day after day. Now, what really frightens and dismays us, according to Epictetus, is not external events themselves, but the way in which we think about the effect. If you have an event, what dismays you or frightens you or make you even annoyed, it's not the event in itself. That's why I use the example of the traffic jam. It is not the things that disturb us, but our interpretation of the things. Some things are in our control, as you know, and others are not in our control. Things in our control, sometimes you can talk of opinions, pursuits, like for wealth, desires, aversion, and our own actions. You can choose to jump, you can choose to sit down, you can choose to sing, you can choose to sleep. But there are also those things that we are not in control of them. We are not even in great control of our bodies. Our bodies are our own. You can control a bit the weight, you can become a bit big or small or something, you can add here and there. But the body is part of you. You can't leave it behind. Or property or reputation. What people think of you depend on what they want. There is a saying that some philosophers, I don't buy into this idea, though I know it's a philosophical thing. I am a philosopher, I am responsible for what I say, not what you interpret from what I have just said. So your own reputation, you have no control sometimes. Command, and in the word, whatever that is not inside you, like your actions, you may not have a lot of control. Now, for us to get the relationship between these thoughts and emotions, let us look at one of the great theologians, the founder of the Jesuit Fathers, the Society of Jesus, St. Ignatius of Loyola. According to St. Ignatius, there are three kinds of thoughts in us. That some are just your own thoughts. They come from your freedom and will, but there are other thoughts that come from outside. Those from outside can be divided into two parts, according to Ignatius of Loyola. There are those from the bad spirit, and there are those from the good spirit. There are those from the evil spirit, and there are those from the good spirit. Now, there is a story of a young boy who went to the dad and said, "Father, what happens to my mind?" Even St. Paul talks of this. Sometimes I want to do the good thing, but I end up doing the bad thing. And the dad told the son, "Listen, in your mind, there are two dogs. One is a very bad dog, ugly, fierce, and the other one is a very nice, quiet dog. So it depends with which one you use." And the young man said, "How do I know which dog controls the other?" Then the father said, "The dog that you feed most controls the other. If you feed evil in your mind, then the evil will be coming out of your mind. If you feed corruption in your mind, then only corruption will be coming from your mind." Last time I talked of people who are maniacs. We have a maniac called kleptomaniacs, from the Greek word klepto. Maniac is excessive desire. There are people whom we call kleptomaniacs because they have that excessive desire of stealing. There are people, if they have nothing to steal, they can steal from this pocket and put to this pocket just to satisfy that desire of stealing, because they have created it in themselves. They have to take something. Some people, when you hear they are involved in corruption, even in Kenya, and even when some police go to pick some people who are involved in corruption, you look at the houses they stay, the vehicles they have, the things they own, and then you ask, some people say, if I have some money like this one, I will never take anything that is not in my own. Only one thing we don't know is that some of these people are sick. They need some healing. Maybe psychological healing or spiritual healing or some kind of healing. But it's maniacs now. They are not able to control. So far from what you have said, we can say, you are what you think. How do your thoughts create your reality? There's a secret that all great historical and present thinkers and philosophers and even high achievers have agreed somehow as a universal truth. This secret revolves around this simple idea: you are what you think. Most of our primary school teachers told us, you are what you think. Think about it. There's an English philosopher called James Allen. He said, as a man thinks, so he is. As he continues to think, so he remains. As a woman thinks, so she is. As she continues thinking in the same line, so she becomes. You know, Stoic, who was also a Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius, he said something very important. A man's life is what his thoughts make of it. And there's also a poet who said, a man is what he thinks about all day long. Why did our parents tell us, show me your friends so that I may know you? It's because I know your friends and I know how they think, how they talk, the thoughts they entertain in their mind all the day long. I can know how your behavior is likely to be. You cannot be a person whose all the friends smoke, banging, but it's only you who remain there as their maybe preacher, as the one who encourages them to stop. No, it is a high probability that they have influenced you into it. So all these great minds, the philosophers, the poets, they discovered the secret to living a happy life. A happy life is a life of purpose, a life that is a productive life. And it is this, from what I've discussed so far, we live in a world of thoughts. So sometimes we take it for granted that those thoughts that we entertain in the mind do not influence how we even walk, how we even think. Our thoughts create our experiences, and thus we experience sometimes what we think. And actually it is a quality of our thoughts then that create the quality of our lives. So it is good to maintain healthy thoughts. You think of a failure, you definitely create a lot of energy to fail. You think of yourself as a successful person, you definitely create a lot of energy within you that emits all that energy which is needed for your success. So when we are happy, where we are in life, we seek to create change. When we are unhappy with the way our life is going on, we think of changing. But how many times do we think of changing our thinking patterns? So sometimes you find that people go about transforming their environment, believing that in doing so, they will create the change they want in their lives. Some people go and buy a lot of material things to boost their happiness. The most modern vehicles, the best of the gadgets. And they think it's because they lacked these things that they were not happy. Immediately they buy these big, great gadgets and vehicles. They still feel that they have a need for more. Some people travel a lot to escape, their problems. But the more they travel, the more they feel the need of traveling. Once we try all these other methods of creating happiness in us, we actually remember we are losing the happiness. St. Augustine had put it very well. St. Augustine was one of the great philosophers and theologians. At one moment, St. Augustine even had a child called Deodatus, but later the child died. He had tried all kinds of life before joining the life. He tried wine, best of wines, life with women, all kinds of lives. But at the end, St. Augustine said, oh God, I've looked for you everywhere, in the things of this world. Little had I known that as I was looking for you there, very far, you are within me. And then he concluded by saying, O Lord, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless without you. Sometimes we seek all over for this joy, for happiness, for good life, not knowing very well that it is within our reach. Sometimes it is here. We have to recreate the world within ourselves, not create the world outside. And so the cycle repeats. We buy, we travel, we forget, we continue concentrating on the external factors, thinking that this will alter the way we feel or the way we think, but the more we look outside, the more we get restless. Until we think of one day coming back to ourselves, to our inner being, which is actually what God wants. This happened because we falsely assume that change begins from the outside. The truth, the environment does play quite very little on who we are and how we feel. Sometimes we need to address the root of the cause. And the root of the cause of all these miseries is nothing than our own thinking. Our thinking is the driver behind why we feel the way we do. And therefore, if we want to change the outside, we must first change the inside. We must change the attention of our thoughts, because what we think directly influences how we feel. And how we feel directly influences even how our body reacts. And how our body reacts directly influences how we behave. And how we behave comes to define who we are and what is the experience of our lives. So if you get the inside right, the outside will follow into place. That is what Eckhart Tolle said. We have to deal with the inside. It all begins with our thoughts. Our life experiences springs from our thoughts. We actively engage in this, which is the maxim that I was trying to explain. We are what we think. We are what we think. And maybe today the practical part of our discussion would be, start thinking of those things that runs up in your mind every day. If they are negative things, you probably have a lot of negativity in life. If they are positive things, you have a lot of positivity in life. Can we this week before, because we are meeting next Monday on the same, where we shall try, you see the conclusion, it was coming one by one. Next week we shall talk about the link between thoughts, emotions, then behavior. We had been thoughts and emotions, then we shall link with the behavior next week. Try maybe to create positive thoughts in your mind, and it may work for you. Until next week, same place, probably same time. Goodbye.
Kipaimara ni sakramenti yenye kumpa Mkristo Roho Mtakatifu na ukamilifu wa mapaji yake 7, kumfanya Mkristo mkamilifu na kumfanya shahidi hodari wa Yesu Kristo mpaka kufa.
Kupata kipaimara kama skiza tune yako, tuma neno skiza likifuatwa na nambari 738100272 kwa 811.